What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another reaction video. Today we are reacting to episode 1 of Yuri on Ice. Yay! This has been highly requested. A lot of people have been wanting me to react to this, so I decided to give it a go. I am going to just throw one disclaimer out there. It is not my first time watching it. It is my second time watching it. However, I have not watched it since it was coming out in 2016, I think it was. So there are a lot of pieces of the story that I don't necessarily remember. I think a lot of it will be pieced together as I watch it, but these reaction videos are more going to be leaning towards what I've been doing with Medalist, where it's less about reacting and more about talking about the realism within the show. I am a figure skater. I have been doing it since 2003. That's almost 22 years. I started later in the year, and I coached for 10 years of it, so I like to think I know a thing or two about skating, and everyone's been really enjoying Medalist, so I thought it would be fun to do Yuri on Ice as well. This show was so popular when it was coming out. In fact, I still see people talk about it to this day. We're not going to talk about what Mappa did to it. We're going to brush over that information. But I'm really excited to get into it. I do remember it's about Yuri. There's another Yuri, but we call him Yurio. And then we also have Victor, who becomes Yuri's coach. I remember we're focused on the Grand Prix, which I'll talk about as we get through the episode and that sort of thing. But I'm really excited. One other note too that I want to mention is that Medalist is something that I can relate to on a very deep level because it's more following a skater at the beginning of her career. Therefore, that's something that every skater goes through, and it's a little bit more relatable to me. Yuri on Ice, I do remember he's already at the senior level. He's already competing at the Grand Prix. He's working on quad jumps. I can't relate to that. I never got to that level. So when I speak to the Grand Prix, how it works, that sort of thing, it's not based off of my own experience. However, it is based off of what happens every year. Since I started skating, I have never missed watching a Grand Prix season. So yes, it's more of a perspective of a viewer when I talk about senior level competitions, just because I've never done it. However, because I've been paying attention to it for so long, and it still is about my sport, I still know a lot about how it works. So I just want to put those couple of disclaimers. This series is probably going to be just a little bit different than Medalist just because of those two things. However, I'm still really, really excited to get into it. So we're going to dive right in, but before we do, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts on Yuri on Ice. Also, if you have any other requests of anime that either have figure skating in it or have a figure skating episode that you want me to react to, let me know in the comments below. You can also follow me on social media. I am at HannahMalay on Instagram. That's more for my cosplay related stuff. Some figure skating stuff might get posted on there. And you can also follow me on TikTok and X for more of my random thoughts throughout the day or silly cringe Demon Slayer short form content, and that is Looking Nerdy. All of my socials are linked in the description below. Finally, if you do want to get early access to this video and unedited, you can join my Patreon. It is also linked in the description. But with that, let's get into it. This is gonna bring back so many memories. I just realized I did my entire intro with my headphones in, which I never do. I was like, what do I do with my hands? In 2016, I was in the throes of skating, skating every single day, obsessed with all things skating. It was my entire life, and it's always been my life, but now anime kind of is more my life now. We cannot skip this intro. Oh. Yay. This was literally my first introduction to anime and anime OPs. It's kind of crazy, but everyone in the skating world is watching it. Even my favorite skater, Ashley Wagner, was literally talking about it. I was like, I think when she posted it is when I decided it was time for me to watch it. It's such a pretty OP too. The way, all of their moves are still, on the beat of the music. Okay. Sochi Grand Prix Final. 5th consecutive Grand Prix Final. Oh, he's very pretty. 27 is pretty old for figure skating. Oh yeah, don't look at the media. Also quite old for figure skating. He's been training in the US. That also doesn't happen super often. Japan is a very, very strong country in figure skating, so at least in solo skating, most of them are going to train in Japan. Usually ice dance in pairs. There's a lot more moving to other countries. It's not entirely abnormal, it just doesn't happen super often. Junior Grand Prix final, yeah. So, here's my first pause of this. So I want to kind of explain to you how the Grand Prix final works without getting into huge detail because there are a lot of rules, but essentially the first half of the season for international skating is the Grand Prix. So there is both the Junior Grand Prix and the Senior Grand Prix. The Junior is going to be, I believe, solo skating is under the age of 17, so they have to be 17 or younger, and then Senior is for 17 and older. And Junior actually happens from August until late September or early October, and then the Senior Grand Prix starts mid-October, almost always with Skate America here in the United States. In the Senior Grand Prix, there are 6 competitions, and skaters get a maximum of 2 events. The top 6 skaters from those 6 events get to compete at the Grand Prix final. That means that from every Grand Prix, where there's usually 12 skaters per solo event, you have to come in the top 3, so you have to podium at each of your Grand Prix, both of them, in order to qualify for the Grand Prix final. The Grand Prix final is a very special event that a lot of people never make because you have to show consistency early on in the season. And it's so difficult to make that sometimes 2 third-place finishes is not enough. Even a second and a third sometimes is not enough. So you want to be winning things. So in order to make it to the Grand Prix final, you've already proven yourself. The Grand Prix final is kind of the icing on the cake. But the Junior Grand Prix from Yuri Plisetsky. I'm not good at Russian names, so I apologize in advance. It just means that he is quite a bit younger. He could be doing around the same elements just because at junior and the free skate, you're allowed to do quads and that sort of thing. He's not allowed to do quads in the short program, which is different, but the scores are going to automatically be lower just because it's junior. I think they have 1 less jumping pass altogether, but he took the gold in the junior event, and then there's a senior event. So all 4 disciplines at the Grand Prix final have their junior events and their senior events, and all of them, it's only the top 6. So very, very big deal to just qualify. This has nothing to do with skating. I'm just giggling because they would not be speaking the same language to each other. That was very mean. Is he doing college and skating at the same time? That's not super common. Well, you did compete against him. 1 year later. That's some flexibility right there. Has he not? So he hasn't competed since the Grand Prix final. Yep. Yep. Okay. So that's correct. So the Grand Prix final, getting there is a great success. You don't have to win there. Like, it's usually considered to be a success no matter what, even if you come in last place there. However, in the case of Yuri, I've said this before, figure skating is at least 50% mental, if not more. It's such a mental sport. That one loss can really affect you. And then if you go on to nationals, which Japan has very little time in between, the Grand Prix final is usually like the second weekend of December, and then their nationals is usually over Christmas week. So they get like 2 weeks in between, and then they're at nationals. So he couldn't shake how he felt, and then he didn't perform well there. Nationals, while it's not the trials, it's not like the Olympic trials where your entire season is completely based off of it, but if you do poorly enough there, you will not get named to the world team, to the four continents team, because Japan, being a very strong country, gets 3 in both women's and men's. And they usually are going to go with the top 3. However, if something crazy happens, you know, someone who, let's say the Grand Prix final champion went to nationals and came in 6th, they would probably still send them just because they've proven their worth for the season. You're going to want to go with the person that is... It's like choosing between the person that has been iffy all season but had a fluke good nationals, or the person that has been great all season and had a fluke bad nationals. The likelihood that the first person will do good at Worlds is much lower. So there's a lot to pick from, but if he did poorly enough, especially after coming in last place at the Grand Prix final, then his season would be done, which is correct. Sounds like that happens a lot. So it's been a whole year, though. She's ballet, so yeah, that makes sense. Uh-oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he has had a great season. That sounds so good. I'm hungry. Yummy. Aww. That looks really nice. Oh, absolutely not. Not when Worlds is happening. Speaking of Worlds is in like 3 weeks. It's kind of crazy, actually. I'd eat that too. I wish I could get some private ice somewhere. It's kind of mean. He looks great with a ponytail. It's very common for young figure skaters to find one skater that they just adore and latch onto everything about them. I even did that multiple times. So it's not quite the same as having a favorite actor or that sort of thing. When you are a figure skater and then you look up to a well-known figure skater, you feel like you're practically learning from them, right? And you want to be like them because they're doing the same thing that you are doing, but they're doing it at the most elite level that you can. So it's very common to take like hang on to every word they say and watch their skating over and over again and try and skate like them. It's a very relatable thing. I did that multiple times, and that like speaks to me a little bit because I'm like, oh, when I was a kid, I was the same way. It's crazy because these ice rinks that they've been competing in, like the one we saw in Sochi and the one that they're showing now, like is definitely modeled after the real rinks that these skaters skated in real life competitions, which is fun. Quadlets. Quad flip. It's interesting seeing the difference for this one compared to Medalist, because I think this is all hand-drawn. Medalist, I know that they're doing like CGI and using real-life skaters. So this one's a little bit harder to kind of break down and say, oh yeah, that was absolutely right, because it looks a little bit more just, I don't even know how to describe it, like almost herky-jerky. Like that quad Lutz, it looked like he just did a small loop and then went into it. He would need to gain speed around the entire rink, and no amount of like transitions you can add can change the fact that you have to kind of gain the speed around the rink in order to do something like a quad Lutz. You can't do that out of like a few small steps in the middle. So that might have just been because it's anime, but just calling it like I see it. Quad sound, yep. They are showing just enough at the very beginning of the jump for me to be like, okay, that's definitely correct. Triple axel. Has he done any combos yet? Okay. Triple axel, triple loop? It wasn't a toe loop. It's definitely a loop. You can tell the difference with a combo when they land the jump. When they land the jump, the way to be able to tell the difference between a toe loop combo and a loop combo is the toe loop combo, when they land it, you'll see their free leg, which is the leg in the air, pick in the ice and jump, like launch them back up in the air. If they do a loop jump after, it's considerably more difficult. They land on their landing leg, so if they're right-handed, they usually land on their right leg. I think for the sake of the animes, they always keep them spinning counterclockwise like right-handed people. So they land on their right foot, and they don't swing their left leg around, they don't launch it into, like, they don't pick into the ice, they just jump back up. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. It's quite a bit harder to do, so you don't see a ton of loop combos. You usually see toe loop combos. It's worth less points, but the level of getting it done clean is important. You would rather do a less difficult jump well than a more difficult jump poorly. So it's give or take. He knows every step of this program. That's some next level. Love for a skater. I could, when I was skating, probably go out and do one of Ashley Wagner's programs with easier jumps. I don't think I could do it step for step, though. Triplets. Did he only do one combo? There might be another jump here, though. Triple flip. No combos? Only one combo? A quad at the end of the jump? Of the program? Okay. So he did 2 combos from what I can see. There should be 3 combos, and one of them should be a 3-jump combo. Just throwing that out there. Very few skaters do a quad as the final jump, too. That's incredibly difficult. Skating programs are very tiring. The more tired you are, the harder it is to jump. Their names are Axel, Loop, and Lutz. Those are 3 jumps, in case you didn't know. I'm assuming those are nicknames. Oh, it's that guy. Whoa, man. So you literally grew up and named your children after jumps? Kind of crazy. I think I know what's about to happen, if I'm remembering correctly. He's 15. So, as a reminder, I know I mentioned that seniors are for 17 and above. That's a recent rule change. It used to be, I think you had to be 15 by July 1st of that year to compete in seniors. So, in this world, because this is set almost 10 years ago, 15-year-olds are totally allowed to compete in senior. Why you have to be so mean? Oh, you're gonna do more than that. It's the last thing you, like, I can't imagine if I, like, went out there and did a carbon copy of Ashley's skates. I'd be so embarrassed. Snow in April. I thought the dog was dead. I'm confused. Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, I remember where this is going. I'm gonna have to censor some of this. Hello, Victor. Not the strategically placed fountain. Oh, Lord. All right. Okay, so that was Yuri on Ice, episode 1. Okay, it all is starting to come back to me. I do remember this first episode quite well. I just had to be kind of reminded of a couple things. So, for some reason, I was thinking from, like, my memory of the show, I was thinking that Yuri just, like, quit after the Grand Prix final, but it's not the case. If he had just quit after the Grand Prix final and, like, not gone to National just because he lost the Grand Prix final, I was ready to be like, that doesn't happen, because truly, and again, if there are any professional skaters that have competed at the Grand Prix final watching this video, feel free to correct me, but from a skater who watches skating perspective, skaters don't just give up after the Grand Prix final. Getting there is such an honor that even if you come in last place, you still can be proud of the fact that you got there. Everyone has a bad day. Everyone has bad competitions. And every skater is different. So mentally, however you handle that is going to be different for every skater. So him just like not being able to shake that feeling when he has such a short turnaround in between the Grand Prix final and Nationals, that makes sense. That makes way more sense than what I was thinking it was in the past. So it really is that type of thing where if you ruin yourself at Nationals, like if you're just so deeply buried, let's say you come in 8th at Nationals, but you're coming off of winning the Grand Prix final, they still might send you, but they very well might not, because you're not able to put it all together in one of the most pressuring environments that you'll experience in the season. Because from what I've heard, every skater will say Nationals is a completely different pressure cooker than anywhere else, because at the end of the day, like Grand Prix, you want to win, you want to do your best, you want to go to the Grand Prix final, but if you don't go to the Grand Prix final, it's not the end of the world. Some skaters don't qualify to the Grand Prix final and still go on to medal at Worlds, because you're comparing the beginning of the season to the end of the season, and most skaters are going to be a little bit better by the end just because they're a little bit more confident and comfortable and not as just like, like I just had 4 months off and now I'm back to competing. So Nationals, you can't bomb Nationals if you don't want your season to end there. So that is very realistic that he just mentally couldn't shake it. I feel really bad for Japanese skaters. So in the US, we have the Grand Prix final, again, that's the second weekend of December. Nationals, unless it's an Olympic year, usually doesn't happen until the 3rd week of January. So they have over a month in between. The Grand Prix season is non-stop. It is literally back to back to back to back competitions. And that doesn't mean that you specifically are competing back to back. Usually you have at least a couple weekends in between. But it is 6 competitions that happen over 6 weeks. And then there's 1 week off. And then there's the Grand Prix final. So if you did your 2 Grand Prix events, you went to the Grand Prix final, not having that like month and a half off that US skaters have, I can only imagine how difficult it is for these skaters to have such a tiring first half of their season and then not get any time off and still compete in Japan, especially because there's also travel involved. The Grand Prix series, there's 2 events in North America, there's 2 events in Asia, and there's 2 events in Europe. And some of these skaters will compete in one in North America and then compete in one 3 weeks later in Japan. And I can only imagine how tiring just competing is, let alone all of that travel. So I feel like in Yuri's case, that's very realistic of him to not be able to shake how he felt at the Grand Prix final, simply because he doesn't get that break in between to like get himself together. And if you are a skater that's been struggling mentally for a while, it's gonna get you. So he needs to learn a little bit of mental fortitude in the sport, but everyone's different, and some people just can never really get there. I never was really able to get there either. I was pretty terrified of competing for most of my career, and also very scared of jumping. That was weird. I don't know why Siri was listening to me, which is something I'm gonna have to very much work for if I want to get back into competing. But anyway, I think that's gonna be it for today's episode. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, your thoughts on today's episode. Also follow me on social media at Hannah Malay on Instagram and at lookingnerdy on TikTok and X. Well, with that, thanks for watching. Matane!